everyone. Welcome back to episode 90 of Talkoffamepod podcast with your host, Kylie Montigney. I'm so excited to have on singer-songwriter Morgan Myles. Thanks so much for coming on, Morgan.
Hey guys, what's going on? Thank you for having me, Kylie.
Of course. So what made you want to pursue a career in music and be in the music industry? Like, was it something that you always wanted to do, or is it something that kind of unexpected, like something you wanted to do unexpectedly?
Um, I feel like I don't know if this is always the cheesy answer, but I feel like music chose me. I don't have anybody musical in my family, so I was kind of this odd duck chasing a dream, and my parents have always been super, super supportive, and yeah, it was something that I definitely was going after, and I just absolutely love music. I don't know who I would be without music, so it was definitely from when I opened my mouth, I was into music. So it's definitely been a strange thing, say for my family, not coming from like generations of music musicians and all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's how I am. Because like obviously music is something big part of everyone's life, especially mine. Like I don't know where I would be without music. Like if for
mhm.
me, like whenever I'm doing something, I'm always listening to podcasts or music, like either one, especially music. Like how has like music helped you since like the pandemic? Obviously during the pandemic, we were always stuck at home. We really couldn't do anything. And obviously music has really impacted everyone during like over like the last like 2 years, especially because we were stuck at home and everything. Like, how has it impacted you? Because obviously, for me personally, it has impacted me so much through this hard time doing at home and you couldn't know what was going on. So, how much has it like impacted you over the last couple of years?
I mean, it's been a wild ride because, I was so used to being on the road,
Hmm.
um, and recording and doing all these things. And our industry was the first to shut down because,
Hmm.
based on like just the vocal restrictions that we had because of the lack of better terms, the spit and the distance and all this
Yeah.
stuff with recording. We found ways around it. We were writing on Zoom. There was different ways to record, but it felt very much, I don't know, the energy's not there when you're disconnected, not in the same room. I think music really does, bring a collaborative vibe. So I think that was hard to find a way to navigate a really odd scenario of what we were used to as far as writers and creating.
Hmm.
I definitely felt like it was odd. It's like I enjoyed not having to be hustling on the roads like a crazy person like I'm used to. But
Hmm.
then I didn't have my outlet at times that I started to feel like very anxious. And what when 2021 rolled around, basically my booking agent was like, "Okay, you do you want to try to take this like risk of being out on the road? You're gonna have to do it all solo acoustic." And I ended up doing like 100 some, shows last year, which was really tough to navigate. Like
Hmm.
sometimes the shows had to get canceled because of resurgence. The West Coast was just so difficult, and then it seemed like as soon as we were finding like the opening, it was like gas prices were shooting through the roof. So it was
Hmm.
just like one thing after another.
Yeah.
Everybody was state to state. It was really, really hard to navigate. I could be in the Midwest and things were very much open. The South was open, but then I mean, I remember playing in November, like November last year in New York City, and it was still very much like a ghost town. It wasn't the New York City that I remember. So it's
Hmm.
been challenging. It's made me extremely grateful for, what I was able to do before. And I just have to believe that we'll get back to it. And I know we're getting back to it. I've been in LA for the last 2 months, and they're still very, very, masks and COVID is still very much a thing there. So
Hmm.
it's been crazy. I mean, it's definitely affected us on a major level because
Hmm.
we're like, concerts are super spreaders and
Yeah.
all this stuff. And,
Mhm.
you know, are you going to be doing meet and greets? And, and it's just, our industry is very much, people, like we
Yeah.
have to interact with people, and that has been difficult. But I think one of the cool things that we learned, but I don't think could ever replace, is just how to connect with people on a broader level through like social media
Mhm.
and doing more of that. I still don't think it's the same. I think it has its place, but nothing can
Mhm.
replace the actual feel of being at a concert. So that is a long-winded answer. I'm very sorry, but it's the truth. I mean, it's been a wild journey. But I do
Mhm.
think it makes you appreciate, you know, what we had before, and hopefully we can get back to some of what we used to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just remember being at my first concert since the pandemic back in September. I just remember being so overwhelmed. I'm like, I realized how much I miss seeing in-person like shows. And
Mm-hmm.
it really really changed. Like when I saw like when I went to a concert, like there was really like we you legit forgot like that the whole pandemic COVID was actually happening. Like, oh, this like concerts are back to normal. Obviously, like people were putting performances online and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and like you that's really not the same. Like obviously it's on your like TV screen or on your phone or whatever you're watching, but it's not in person. Like you would rather go see the person like actually in person in live than actually see them online. Because obviously
Mm-hmm.
that's what we had to deal with during the 2020 is like we had to see everything online and we couldn't leave the house. And
Yeah.
obviously this is one of the reasons why I started a podcast. I was like, this is something that can actually help people during the pandemic. And like,
Mm-hmm.
this is something like I really wish I want to actually have a conversation with someone, and instead of being in the background and is not talking to anyone during this time that is very difficult for everyone in many ways. Like obviously everyone is very different and stuff, and but like this is something that I could really use to help other people and get some entertainment. But like I wanted to ask you, like during when you went on tour and stuff, like in 2021, like how did you like manage like your schedule and like personal life, and like how did you deal with all of that? Because obviously for me personally, like it's very hard for me to deal with like doing like my work and doing sometimes my family and doing things I like to do. So I wanted to do like ask you about it and stuff.
I mean, I don't think that's anything different than when I was on tour prior to the pandemic. It's all about scheduling and prioritizing your career, I mean, for me, I'm a full-time musician. So, there's times during the week, you try to schedule, the rights and the recordings, but a lot of times you're doing a lot more of that in the winter months because you don't tour as much. You
Mhm.
come closer to the hotter months and it's festival season, and it just, it's just our lives is just it's hectic. I mean, of
Mhm.
course it's hectic and it's grueling, it's exhausting, but we love what we do, and it's
Mhm.
really just a scheduling thing, all over the place. And I find time to my family lives in Indiana, my parents live here, so I see my parents all the time. And as far as my family goes, I try to get up there as much as I can. And it's just balance, baby. It's balance.
Mhm. Yeah,
You gotta love what
exactly.
you do,
Yeah.
and again, like, that saying, if do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And
Mhm.
truly, I do what I love. And so I don't ever feel like, oh my gosh, I'm working like a 9 to 5. No, it embodies 24/7. But I've met so many people on the road, amazing relationships and friends. And a lot of times, if I have a few days off in between, like, we go do something fun, like we go do a cool vacation somewhere or something like
Mhm.
that. So, and that's also one thing that was kind of the silver lining touring solo acoustically, is like I didn't have to worry about a full band, which is,
Mhm.
that's just more bodies, more trouble kind of thing. It
Yeah.
just takes up more time. But with the solo acoustic thing, I had a lot more flexibility. So I mean, I got to do things like I played Alaska, and half the time we were doing fun excursions last year, and really getting that intimate time with people that are booking you and making really cool relationships. And I had that ability versus like I'm taking care of, four other band members, making sure they're okay and da 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 da. So I think that was kind of the silver lining. And I think what I will in the future make sure to keep implementing is like, is there a possibility to just do solo acoustic so that some of those moments are to be had? Like, what is the best delivery? Is it a full band show or is it more of a solo acoustic show? And how can, during the year, since it's important to me, how can some of the months I do solo acoustic and then other times can I do full band, So I think there's pros and cons to both. And I really learned that because before I was just very adamant, it's got to be full band. We got to figure this out and that, and this has kind of made me a lot more flexible. I mean, I became extremely flexible last year. I mean, you have to. So I just became way better about it for sure.
Yeah, like for me personally, like during this whole like last year, I'm like, damn, like this is something like I love doing, but like I was like, I want to spend time with my family and like and doing all these fun things. That's like during the whole summer, I'm like was busy all summer long. And I was like, there's always something going on every single day that I'm like, oh my God, I do not have a break in anything I do. And so like when I chorus, like I live in a small town in Pennsylvania. So about 90% of my family is from Pennsylvania in my area. So like I do live about like 20-minute like radius from me and my family. So it's
Where
mad
do
like
you live? Where do you live? Because I was born and raised in PA. I'm from Williamsport,
oh
and I've been
really?
there. Yeah,
I live
that's the only.
in yeah, I live in Scranton Wilkes-Barre area.
Okay.
About an hour from Williamsport.
Yeah, I used to play soccer, like tournament soccer in Scranton. So
Oh
yeah,
really?
I know very well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where did you play soccer at? Like was it like a dorm? Because I know there's like a soccer dorm or something in Scranton or Wilkes-Barre.
Well, I mean, I played, gosh, I mean, from second grade till senior year of high school, and then I tore my ACL. So, oh my gosh, we played everywhere. There were camps and there was traveling soccer. I mean, I don't know, but it was everywhere in Pennsylvania. So
Gotcha.
you weren't far away. I know, like, I would have to really think back there. It's been a while, but
Mhm.
it was a big part of my life. And then I tore my knee really badly senior year, and that's
Yeah.
basically was like, well, God made the decision so that I wasn't trying to still balance soccer and music, So
Yeah,
I went to yeah. So I went to music school.
that's amazing. So like recently, like did you come out with an album called Therapy, your debut album, Therapy?
Yeah, I came out with it January 2020. So a month and a half before or 2 months before the pandemic hit. And, these songs, I wrote 70 songs in 5 months. Corey Crowder, who's a big producer here, produced it. It took me, I was in a really bad management situation and I had to fight for my master's because it was just a very toxic situation. And so finally, after like 2 years of this whole process of creating it to trying to get the master's, I released in January 2020, and then the world shuts down and I had, shows booked and everything. And it was just like, oh my gosh, just one thing stacked up against another with this album. But the music on the album, I think, is going to still stand strong. It's, I always said this album really deserves to be heard because it's not about me. I had lost my cousin, who was 33 at the time, to brain cancer. And a lot of those songs were for my family, but for people to heal. And music is healing to me. And I just really believed that I had to fight for this music just so that if it can reach somebody and help them, then it was worth it. It was worth the fight. But songs are like babies,
Mm.
in a way, because they're so dear to your heart. You have to be very vulnerable. And that was a part of my life that was super challenging. And there's a lot of anthemic empowerment songs because I was having to fight for myself with that toxic situation with the management. And then on the other side, losing one of my best friends, who was my cousin, who it was really, really hard for me to get through it because we knew it was inevitable. He had glioblastoma, which no one survives. And, I just felt extremely helpless. So a lot of that was in my music. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate, like just how the pandemic did affect music in a big way of just getting, because you can't support it,
Yeah.
once it's out there, you can't go and continue to promote it anywhere and everybody didn't know what to do. I mean, I think now we have better ways of knowing how to navigate that, but no matter what, I'm still really proud of that album. I'm just proud that it's out there and people can hear it, and you know somebody hopefully hears it somewhere and they need it.
Yeah, I love that. Like it really, the shows like when you like lose a loved one, like there's really like I feel like you like lost something in you personally.
Oh,
When I like lost my grandmother back in 2018 from a stroke, I remember like being so heartbroken that like I just remember being like I felt like something like I felt like I lost something in me. I just remember
yeah.
being myself. Like I was like, what's going on? Like I never felt like this before. And she's like one of my best friends in
Mhm.
life back then. And so I was like, what am I supposed to do like in life right now? Like I can't stop grieving. Like I don't know how to go with life without my grandma. And now, like during the pandemic, you just learned how to be more grateful for your family. Because
Mhm.
obviously, like you just want the best for your family. Like you just don't want anything bad happening to them and stuff during the pandemic and stuff. Like you, that's really was the most important to me. And like
Mhm.
you, like I, for me personally, when I picture something happening to my family, like I'd be like, no, this is not happening. Like I do not want something to happen to my family, and I'm sure that's really something everyone can picture like their
Yeah.
feelings. But like what do you like want like people to take away from your album? Like in case like they're losing like a loved one or something, like what do you want like people to take away from it?
I think well, and I always, again, I believe music is up into interpretation so that they can take whatever their situation is and ensconce themselves to hopefully relate into whatever that trigger is, to help them not feel alone, that other people go through these things as well, so you're never alone.
Uh-huh.
And also the fact that there's hope. There's a song on there called I Believe that I wrote when Mac went into end of life therapy. And I was just devastated. I was in LA. I could barely like breathe and talk. And this poor guy is trying to write with me. Thank God for Brandon Rogers. um, but it's when you lose people, I mean, the first person that you lose is always just, I mean, it's heart wrenching because life gets real. And not to side gear here, but I think what was really tough about my cousin Mac was watching somebody who was so extremely strong and young. When someone young passes, it's like on this level of there was so much life to be lived, and you never picture your life without one, because their age is so young. And I think for me, he got like a mutated gene of what our grandfather died of a couple of years earlier.
Mhm.
And you know I think sometimes, and I shouldn't think this way, it's like I could have easily had this, any of our cousins could, and he had
Mhm.
to take on this massive you know situation. And he did it at like a champ. And when that happened, it put my whole life into just an insane perspective. And
Yes.
just said the only way to truly get through grieving process that I've experienced is to, go through the emotions and feel it and be vulnerable and face it. But the biggest thing is when you start truly counting the blessings we take for granted,
Mm-hmm.
we call them small blessings, but they're actually the biggest blessings. We think blessings are material things or getting to go on a vacation, or our career takes off or something like that. I mean, if we didn't have clean water, if we didn't have food to eat, if we didn't have our family, if we didn't have people to be there, it's like all those things that I feel like on my album, I hope people realize just my sincerity and my genuine, you know, desire for you guys to not feel like you're alone. And I feel like God gave me a gift to sing and write music. And my hope is that I can share that with people that don't have that ability.
Mm-hmm. I that exactly. And so do you have like a song that like on the album that like stuck out to you the most or like kind of meant to you the most on the album?
Since we just kind of mentioned I believe, I would say that's my most personal one because it embodies, you know, Mac, my cousin, and also just our grandfather. His favorite song was this old cheesy song that was, I believe it was like a gospel song. He always wanted me to sing it, and then I made my rendition of what I would want, I believe. And so it's just a personal one. Sanctuary is a big favorite. Therapy is a big favorite of people. I love all the soulful songs. A lot of the the songs that are super anthemic, like Empire and like Silence and stuff. Sometimes I think I kind of put them to the side because I was going through such an emotional situation, and
Yeah.
they're out there empowering, but it brings back some of those hard times of some of the things that manager had said to me and put me down. But nevertheless, I mean, thank God there's music so that I could passive aggressively put those emotions into the music while I was going through it.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like the best thing about like songwriting is that like when you're going through something, like losing a family member, just losing a friendship or something you're going through, it's always good to like write something down that you feel like, oh my God, like this is something to that's gonna be worth something more in a couple of months or years. As
Yeah.
a songwriter, you can use it as something in the future in a song. Like you may never know. Like whatever you're going through, you can always use it in something more than yourself. I feel.
Yeah. And I always say that's kind of like the payoff for a hard situation is, and truly you feel therapeutic. Like once you if you're going through a bad day and you write that out, you leave that writing session like feeling like you just had a therapy session, or that you just had a massage, and you feel like validated that, like, okay, I just went through that so I could
Mhm.
write that song. And I'm sure, I know that's not the best thing on the planet, but it's like it definitely is an outlet, and
Yeah.
it's strong. And it's like writing poetry or whatever anybody's outlets are, whatever resonates with you, but it's important to have an outlet for sure.
For sure. Yeah, that's for sure. So you got to do a collaboration with Cody Johnson's current single, Nothing on You. What was it like for you to work with Cody, and what was the process like for you to write Nothing on You with Cody?
Well, I didn't write Nothing on You. I wish I
Mm.
had written it. Actually, I'm all the BGVs on that song. So even the choir you're hearing, all the female part, like backing, that's me. So it's funny. This guy named Trent Willman is his producer, and I write with a guy named John Pierce. And Trent was like, "We need a super soulful female." And so John mentioned me, and I was like, yeah. So I went in. Cody wasn't there, he was on the road. And this is when Cody was still independent, but killing the game, like killing it. And then all of a sudden, Cody signed that record that he had made with me on it to Warner. And that's what happened. We had to re-sign everything just on a contractual side of getting payment out. But it was really cool just to see the whole process and how well Cody's doing. And he's such a freaking star. You know, I feel like he's like bellying up to like our modern day George Strait, which I
Mhm.
mean, so huge in Texas and all these places, but he's a true cowboy for
Mhm.
sure. And I feel very honored to be part of it. And I love that song. I wish it had done a little bit better on radio. Um, but it's, you know, I know why they chose it, because every time he would do a concert, the entire arena would go silent and they'd put flashlights up, and it was just this massive moment. And that's why I think they chose it as the single. But country radio is a fickle little thing.
Yeah,
So
for sure. And so, like, what is like something you kind of wish you knew when starting out as like a singer-songwriter that you like basically know now, but didn't know that when you started out?
oh my gosh, there's so many things. I mean, and they tell you on repeat, like, you know, you're gonna run into some bad people. And honestly, I'm still gonna do it. I'm still gonna run into people that are not good for me. But you know, it's easy to manipulate an artist, because we all have the same ambition. We have dreams, and we're vulnerable, and it's just easy to really cut us down and know what's important to us to manipulate us and control us. And we are the product. So, you know, it's hard to be treated in a way with like, yeah, we're not robots.
Yeah,
uh, I mean, it's hard to know where to begin with advice because there's so much. And I try to make sure that you know, up and comers, just if I can fill them in any way I can, but really knowing, you know, putting in the time of knowing who you are and what you have to say. But the reality of an artist is we're going to grow because we're humans, and we're going to go through life at different times in different ways in different places. And as a storyteller, it's going to change. And just to make sure that you're always doing this for the right reasons, because if you're not, if it's you just want the spotlight and everything, I feel like people can see right through it. So it's
yeah,
like, sing songs that you truly believe in, and you better be doing it because you want to connect with people, because it's not easy. It is
yeah,
so hard, and it takes so long, especially from females. And
yeah.
you know, we have to try 10 times harder than any male. And I think it's just be ready to put the work in, and be ready to deal with the ups and downs, and have the right people around you that can pick you back up, because you're going to fall. And but there's so much. I mean, there's so much to learn. And this business is also like, when I first got to Nashville, you know, it was a different world. We're in such, you know, streaming hadn't hit yet, and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. And there's just an oversaturation of music coming out. It's overwhelming. And, you know, how people get paid is different. And, you know, radio is a crazy game, and country is the only one that's really still adapting to radio. So there's so much. I don't even know. It's such an open-ended question. I wish I could have answered that with like a sentence, but um I think it's just be willing to be a sponge and learn everything you can, and
Mhm.
uh leave the ego at the door.
Yeah. And so, like, yeah, like what when you said earlier that like, oh, you shouldn't do this for the spotlight, and I agree with that. Like, people often ask me like, oh, you probably just do this to get the spotlight or to be famous. I'm like, that's like stupid to do. Like, I wouldn't do that. Like, obviously, if I did that, like, if I would want to do it for the spotlight, I'd be done by now. If I wanted to do
Yeah.
the spotlight, and like, obviously, I would have done it that long. This podcast or whatever I did if I wanted a spotlight. If like if you really like what you do, then you will keep doing it. And like I enjoy my like work so much, and everyone like that's like in the industry enjoys it so much that like they just can't go over it. And that's how like I feel, because obviously I am like I am only 15 years old, and I know people be like, why you work at such a young age? A lot. I'm like, well, this is something like I love to do. Like
Hmm.
no one's gonna stop me. You might think that I'm using this to get fame and stuff. I'm like and stuff, but like I'm just doing this to have fun and build my connections and to meet new people.
And that's how the best things start. And next thing you know, it's taken off, and you're like, people ask you, like, how'd you come up with your idea? And you're just like, I just was passionate about something that I just started doing one day, and then it works. And I think when your intentions are truly aligned, then I think great things come from it. So
Mhm.
you're gonna have haters, okay? Everybody's got the haters. You just have to
Yeah,
that bye. They're just unhappy with themselves. Okay.
exactly. Exactly. So the final question I have for you is what is some advice for people that like to become like a singer-songwriter one day or just starting out?
um, if it's in country music, come to Nashville, start going to writers' rounds. If you see a writer that you just really connect and like their songs, approach them and say, I would love to co-write with you. Um, and another big thing is if you can get a few songs under your belt, get them recorded so that you have like 5 songs just to kind of show people like what you do. But if you play an instrument, it's going to be a lot easier on you if you can play acoustic guitar so that you can do those writers rounds. That'll help you get your foot in the door, start networking and meeting a lot of people.
Mhm.
It's a process, but that's the way for sure.
100%. So I just want to thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. It was such a blast speaking with you, and I'm so happy we got the chance to talk and stuff. Like, where can people find you on social media if they want to check out your music and stuff?
Okay, it's easy. Everything's the same. It's at Morgan Myles Live, even my website, and Myles is Myles, not Y. um, yeah, everything's at Morgan Myles Live. Follow me, please, and go check out the music. Let me know if you like it. And I have a big show, probably no, this is airing today. I have a big show announcement coming up here soon. I contractually cannot say it yet, but I need people to vote eventually. I hope so. That's the fingers crossed, but we definitely need people to come out and cheer me on. I hope so.
100%.
That's coming soon, hopefully this week. So
Awesome.
thank you for having me, Kylie. It was fun to meet you, and hopefully we meet face to face sometime soon.
Yeah, 100%. I'll like let you know. Like, are you from Tennessee? Nashville?
I live in Tennessee, but I'm born and raised Pennsylvania. So,
Hmm.
but I've been here for 17 years now. So,
Yeah, I get you. Pennsylvania natives always moving on, right?
well, yeah. I mean, granted, there's not a lot of music going on in PA as far as
Mhm.
music schools and that kind
Yeah,
of thing. I had to
100%.
follow where I could, flourish as best I could. So,
Yeah, 100%. So next time I'm in Tennessee, I'll let you know.
yeah,
We'll get together and do face to face or something.
for sure, girlfriend. All right. Well, nice to meet you, and
You
thanks for
too.
having me.
No problem. Bye.
Bye.